Are you tired of sifting through endless resumes looking for the perfect candidate to fill a leadership opening? Skift Executive Search can help. We have an insider view of the travel industry and can leverage both our expertise and connections to find your next rockstar hire. To learn more, visit skift.com/exec-search or email us at execsearch@skift.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Skift Travel Podcast with Sarah and Seth. Thank you so much for joining us. I am your co-host, Seth Borko, the head of Skift Research, and we are just wrapping up a wonderful week live in person at the Skift Global Forum, where the entire Skift edit and research team were joined by a wonderful array of speakers and guests who are real leaders across the travel industry. For today's episode of the podcast, we're bringing you a full session from the Skift Global Forum. The one that we've picked to you is an interview with Expedia's new CEO, Ariane Gorin, in conversation with Skift's founding editor and all-around travel legend, Dennis Schaal. Now, this is a particularly interesting conversation for me because Ariane is brand new into the role. She just started as the head of Expedia in May of this year. Now, she's been with the company for a long time, but this is a both exciting and a challenging moment for Expedia. They're retooling their brands. They're retooling their One Key loyalty program. We're seeing shifts in the Google and the AI landscape. It's a really big moment for the second largest online travel agency in the world, and Ariane is now taking the helm. She discusses what's happening in her business, the challenges and the opportunities as she sees them with Dennis. I hope you enjoy.
And now, please welcome CEO of Expedia Group, Ariane Gorin, in discussion with Skift Executive Editor and Founding Editor, Dennis Schaal.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here, Ariane.
Thank you for having me, Dennis.
Of course. So as you know, the goal of any interview like this is to inform, to provide insights, but it's also to entertain a little bit, you know? And we were talking...
We're going to entertain you all.
We were talking backstage about the fact that I quit drinking a few weeks ago, and Ariane, rumor has it, maybe has a glass of wine on a Friday night or a Saturday night. That's about it. So how much fun can we be?
I know, and plus you haven't told them, we both quit caffeine.
That's true.
So to be like the 9 a.m. session with no caffeine, hopefully everyone in the audience has had caffeine. But.
So hopefully we'll stay awake at least, you know? So over the years, we've had a lot of male Expedia executives on stage. We've had Barry, Dara, Peter, who am I leaving out? Mark. You're the first Ariane.
I am the first Ariane.
And this is your first travel industry conference interview, I believe.
It is.
So how do you feel? How do you feel about the new role?
I feel great. I feel great to be here. It's funny, you know, I've been in the travel industry for 11 years now. And what I love coming to conferences like this is seeing people who I've met over that time. I mean, I remember back in 2013 when I joined the industry, I went to a conference in Florida. And I thought, everyone knows each other, and I know no one. And of course, 11 years later, I can walk through the room and I see a lot of familiar faces. And in fact, yesterday, I saw Hari Nair, who's at Expedia Group, who just took on a role running Hotels.com for us, and a former colleague, Tracy Mercer. And when I started at Expedia 11 years ago, I was running the hotel relationships in EMEA. Hari was running the relationships in North America, and Tracy was running it in APAC. And it was just so fun to think about how we've all grown over the last 11 years. And it's like a big family here in
Absolutely,
travel.
absolutely. It all comes full circle, right?
It does.
So over the last few years, Expedia's gone through a lot of changes. You did this big tech migration, putting Hotels.com, Expedia, Vrbo all on the same tech platform. Last year, you rolled out a new loyalty program, One Key, which consolidated a few of the brand's loyalty programs. And you've been on the job 4 months, and you've already had a big imprint and made some changes there to One Key, and you've also talked about some brand-specific things you need to do to tweak the migration. So can you talk about some of those changes?
Sure. So as you said, over the last few years, we have been doing a lot of foundational tech work and tech migration. And that included having one customer identity across all of our brands, having a common front end, having a common data platform. with a lot of benefits. One, customer identity allows us to have one loyalty program across our big brands. A common data platform and testing platform allows us to test a lot faster than we ever could. Having a common platform also allows us to roll out features faster. So for example, in the second quarter, we rolled out flexible date search across our 3 big brands all at the same time.
Right.
And in the past, that would have taken a lot more work and a lot more time. So that was things we've been doing. And what I've been focused with the team on in the last few months is how do we capitalize on that to accelerate our growth? Because during those migrations, brand Expedia, which was the least disrupted brand, has done really well. We grew room nights 20% in the second quarter, and it's benefited from all of our innovations. But Hotels.com and Vrbo, where we migrated the front ends, in some cases they took a step back. And so what we're really focused on with the team is how do we build back the things that maybe we'd taken a step back on, and really get clear on what is it going to take to get those businesses in a really healthy spot and growing well. And then, sorry, I know your follow-up question is going to be, what about One Key? So One Key, our loyalty program, we've got it in the US and in the UK, and we're happy with the results. It's basically the ability to earn and burn One Key cash across the 3 big brands.
Right.
And the idea is to encourage cross-shopping. What we've seen on Vrbo, for example, is that 30% of the people who have come to Vrbo after having earned One Key cash on Expedia or Hotels.com were net new to Vrbo. So that's working really well. And we decided that we were going to pause the rollout after the UK because the truth is that in many countries outside of the US and UK, we don't have the 3 big brands. So then it becomes a question of how do we use the assets we've built on the technology for the loyalty platform, but tailor them to each specific market.
But when you were planning One Key, a couple of years ago, you always knew that you didn't have 3 brands in all markets. Like I believe in the Nordics, you don't have all 3 brands.
Yep.
Australia?
Australia, we have multiple brands.
Okay. So wasn't it envisioned that this would be an issue going forward?
I think the teams were very, very focused on the US to begin with and building the technology right.
Okay.
And so there was always going to be a question of, well, what happens with the rollout elsewhere? And I think it's recently that as we took a look at it, as we understood its performance where you had the 3 big brands, as it coincides with us going back, I would say, on the offense internationally, we realized, look, we need to think about what's the value proposition of the loyalty platform for each of the brands outside of the US and UK.
Right. So what will be the plan?
I would say we're working on it.
Okay.
In the meantime, though, what's great is that outside of US and UK, travelers are still benefiting from our tiered member deals. So our silver and gold member deals, even if we haven't rolled out One Key across the world, they get those. And as we just heard in the previous presentation, right, travelers are looking for deals. It's great for our hotel partners because they're getting access to incremental demand, and it's great for travelers.
Right.
So we're taking our time to figure it out.
Okay. And what about the Hotels.com loyalty program? Is there any rethinking of that? Because that was a great loyalty program. It was book 10 nights, get 1 free. And by some reports, that got diluted about 80%. So is there any chance that you would revive that? Or?
So where Hari, who's in the front row, I think he has his Hotels.com shoes on.
There he is.
It's one of the things he's going to look at is, what's the future of the loyalty program? What I will tell you all, though, is it is a very powerful loyalty program in the places that it still exists. The stamps with the 10 nights free is a really powerful driver for people to come directly to the brand.
Right. So TBD.
Stay tuned.
So there are some interesting things going on at Vrbo, and the platform migration comes into that. But first, let's go to the videotape, as Howard Cosell used to say.
Check-in time is 3.
It's 2:55.
I know.
Is this what he's doing now?
Have a seat. As your host, I have some rules. First, no showers longer than 5 minutes. This isn't a spa. There's no streaming, only cable television.
Any games for the kids?
No games, no fun. The kids aren't even allowed in the house. That's the rule. There's a great barbecue outside, but don't touch that. How'd you guys get inside? 2 flush maximum per bathroom visit.
Yes, Coach.
You guys got about 10 minutes because this is daddy time in the tub.
Meanwhile, at a Verbo, when other vacation rentals make you share your turf with a host, try one you have all to yourself.
So for anyone who doesn't know, that was Nick Saban of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And you've really gone big with that ad. You know, turn on any sports program over the weekend or during the week and you'll see it. iSpot TV estimates that Expedia spent $900,000 on TV ads since the ad launched August 31st, and that it's attracted the most travel impressions of any travel ad during that period. So are you happy with the results?
We are very happy. It's, it's funny, it's sort of gone viral. I just moved back to the US after 23 years in Europe and never would get messages from friends, even outside of the industry, about our advertising. And as I've just moved back, I had 3 friends text me saying, oh my God, I just saw your college football ad, it's amazing. But it's kind of gone viral. And in terms of the performance of it, like many big companies, we're very data-driven. And so we look at the performance of this one versus other spots that we have in market, and we're quite pleased with the performance of this one.
Great. So the whole theme of the ad is Verbo, whole homes. But I went to Verbo last night, and I see a filter for condos and apartments. And I looked up apartments in LA. There were 723 condos and apartments on Verbo. So what's going on there? Are you getting into more of the urban? Are you moving away from the whole home niche?
So first, before I get into that question, I would say that ad is about no host. It's when you come to Verbo, excuse me, when you come to Verbo, you know there will never be a host. You will have privacy. In terms of what you saw with the apartments, it's true that we've actually just brought on a bunch of supply that had been on brand Expedia. So there are apartments in buildings, some in urban locations, some elsewhere.
Right.
They will never have a host. It will always be private. And some of the platform migration work we were talking about earlier has really enabled that. So It was supply that had been on Expedia. We thought this is going to be interesting for people who come to Verbo. It's always important to have a full shop of inventory that matches what someone's looking for. Again, no host. And we've turned it on. We're iterating on what's the UX to make sure that we're getting the best conversion and we're helping travelers understand what it is. But we're excited about that as a possibility.
So it's always important to pick your spots, right? And in the past, it has been whole homes mostly, right? Vacation rentals. But now you're adding this other type of inventory. So in the past, you were kind of competing with Airbnb, but with one hand tied behind your back because you didn't have the full spectrum of inventory. So that is changing. What does it mean about the competition with Airbnb and Booking.com in short-term rentals?
Yeah, so first, I wouldn't say it was one hand tied behind our backs. I think we were, and we are, we have our positioning, which is whole homes and apartments.
Okay.
Never have a host, and you have a loyalty program, and that really has us stand out. We're very focused with the team on how do you make sure the Verbo value proposition is excellent. As you said, we've added more inventory. We've done a lot of work on the product. Trip boards and the ability to collaborate was an important feature on Verbo. And as we did our migration, the good thing is that collaboration feature came over to Expedia and Hotels.com, but we did lose a little bit on what was there on Verbo. So we've been adding that back. We've been adding back ways to do better comparison shopping and the like in Verbo, making the app faster. So there's a lot of work on the product. There's work in the marketing. You just saw the commercial, but also we're going into new channels. So obviously we feel very strongly about the future of Verbo.
We're going to take a brief pause for a message from our sponsors, but stick around. When we come back, you'll have more of that conversation with Ariane Gorin, the CEO of Expedia, and Dennis Schaal from the stage of the Skift Global Forum. Hey there, it's Seth Borko, the head of Skift Research, and I've got a brand new report that I want to share with you today. It's called our State of Travel 2024 report. It's perhaps the single most comprehensive report we do every year, and the best part, it's free to download right now. We have 350 plus insights in this report with pretty much a chart for basically any sector. Do you need a chart on hotels? We've got that. A chart on airlines? We've got it. A chart on consumer behavior? Guess what? We've got that too. I really appreciate if you check out our State of Travel report. You can download it now by going to skift.com/state of travel with dashes between every word. So that's skift.com/state-of-travel. Download the report, check it out, and let me know what you think. I hope you enjoy.
So Booking.com has been saying over the last month that they now do 2/3 of the room nights of Airbnb, and that they're growing faster than Airbnb quarter after quarter for the last 3 years. Where does Vrbo stand in this race?
You know, it's funny, our industry, it's like, do you talk about hotel room nights? Do you talk about total room nights? Right. Everybody cuts it a different way.
Okay.
I would say for Expedia Group, we have these three big consumer brands: Expedia, Hotels.com, Vrbo. We have some smaller brands, Orbitz and Travelocity.
Right.
And then we've got our B2B business, which is a big growing B2B business, some of which we actually heard in the session before this. And you know, we have the opportunity to sell vacation rentals on Vrbo. We can sell them on Expedia. We can sell them elsewhere. So obviously you always want to look at what's happening with competition and what's happening in the market, but we're really focused on how do we have great value propositions where our brands are.
What other changes do you have up your sleeve? I'm thinking, because you just mentioned Orbitz and Travelocity, no longer core brands. Are you going to eliminate some of those brands? Tell us something that we don't know that you're planning to do.
Well, if I told you before I told my employees and our team, that probably wouldn't be a good thing.
Okay. They're watching.
Yeah, well, yes. But it's true that Orbitz and Travelocity and Hotwire, those are smaller brands, but they're also brands that have some loyal customer bases. Right. And the good news, again, is with the platform work we've done, Orbitz and Travelocity benefit from the work that's being done on the other brands. Right. When you ask me what do I have up my sleeve, something I'm spending a lot of time with our teams on is understanding what makes a customer repeat with us. Okay. And I think it's a lot about what is the unique value we're providing. Some of it is, do we have a complete store? Do we have great rates and availability? And that's sort of I would say it's a truism for everyone. But then it can be, hey, in our loyalty program, is it attractive for people to come and move up the ladder to be silver or gold members because they're getting 1 key cash or they're getting member rates? Is it easy for them to do faster shopping because they have stored payments? We looked at travelers who are using our AI-powered intelligence like flight tracking are more likely to repeat. So there's a whole host of things that if you sift through the data, you can figure out what will drive repeat. And of course, it's what we all want to do, is to drive repeat. It allows us to bring more demand to our hotel partners, our airline partners, our car partners, and the like. And it means it's things that we're doing that are driving differentiated value for travelers. Right. And that's what drives repeat.
How is Expedia going to get more international? So last year, I believe 63% of your business was in the US. And Expedia has been talking about getting more international for years and years and years, before the pandemic, way before the pandemic. So that's a big goal of yours. How do you plan to do it?
So first, I'd separate out our B2B business and our B2C business. B2B business is it's a very geographically distributed business, including international. Right. When I think about our ambitions, there's a lot around international for the B2C business. And it's true that during the COVID period and coming out of COVID, we we weren't as aggressive internationally as we had been previously. And we feel good about where we are in the US, and there's a real market opportunity for us internationally. We're surgical about it, so we look at in which countries do we have high brand recognition, where perhaps we'd pulled out marketing. And since the beginning of this year, we've had a formula in going back into countries, figuring out what's the right marketing mix. Obviously, you need top of funnel, you need bottom of the funnel and the like. You need to have the right supply. And I would say we're pleased with where we are. And it's a big opportunity for us in the years to come. Right. And as someone who hasn't lived in the US for 23 years, has spent almost half my life internationally, I can see the opportunity for us.
Right. I think you've mentioned in the past that Nordics and Japan are key areas of focus?
Yes, they are. Hotels.com is very well known in the Nordics. Mm-hmm. And again, we haven't been actively marketing even the loyalty program, because there was the idea of we are going to migrate. And so there are some things that, again, I'm looking at Hari, he's in the front row here. We think that there are real opportunities.
How did Hotels.com become such a well-known brand in the Nordics and Expedia not? Because Expedia is the favorite child, right?
Oh, there's never a favorite child, Dennis. You have 3 children? There's no favorite child.
I love all my kids.
I think the brands have just grown up organically differently in different places. I mean, maybe there's something to do with which of the lines of business they are. The president of Hotels.com used to be someone named Johan Svanström, who's Swedish. I don't think that's why we were strong in the Nordics. I believe back in the lore, the president of Hotels.com for quite a long time was actually based in London. So, I mean, I don't have a good, precise answer, but right. We'd have to go back to the annals of history.
Okay. So we've been talking a lot about, at this conference, about how much growth is left in online travel, with revenue growth slowing and profit margins slowing. So Ariane Gorin from Silver Rail was on stage yesterday, and he was talking about the explosion of rail demand in Europe, with a lot of countries banning short-haul flights in favor of rail. And he said Expedia is really missing an opportunity there. You're focused on hotels, and if you search for a short-haul flight in say, France, Expedia will point you to a plane. So what about that opportunity, and will that change?
So certainly rail is, it's important, especially in Europe. And it's true, we don't have rail. I think probably anybody who's listening to this or is in the audience, we all have to make resource trade-offs. We don't have infinite resources. And it becomes a question of, where am I going to spend my time? Right. And until now, rail hasn't sort of bubbled up to the top. But it's got to be something that down the road we do. I think anybody who wants to be in online travel or who wants to be in travel, needs to respond to traveler trends, and one of those is rail. But I don't have anything to share right now.
Okay.
And I know Aaron is very passionate about it. I don't know if Aaron is somewhere in the audience here. But.
There he is. So let's talk a little bit about Gen AI. I would be accused of malpractice if I didn't ask you about Gen AI. Brian Chesky was on, we interviewed Brian Chesky yesterday, and he said that he believes that, at first he predicted that Airbnb would be transformed by Gen AI by this year. And then he said, well, what he realized was it's going to take a long time to really feel the impact. And he said even it might take 20 years before we really see a transformation of online travel in the Gen AI sphere. So what's your take on that?
I mean, none of us knows what the timeline of any of it is going to be. Sure. They always say, you tend to overestimate the short-term impact of changes like this, overestimate the long-term impact. No, I said that wrong. Overestimate the short-term, underestimate the long-term impact. And I would say we've been at the forefront of machine learning and AI for quite a while at Expedia Group. And I'd kind of bucket it into a few things. There's, how do you use it to make travelers' experiences better? And sometimes people want to do it everywhere. think that can get expensive, cloud cost, all of that. But looking for, testing things and looking for some specific areas where you know there's value immediately. So for example, 72% of people, before they make a booking, look at reviews. And often, if you come to our brands, if you go to other brands, you're gonna have hundreds of reviews to sift through. So using Gen AI as a way to summarize and then, for example, highlight, where did this review on the pool or whatever come from, so that you're not just hearing what does the hotel have to say, but it's also the reviews. That's a good use case that can drive conversion. There are good use cases around operations. We use Gen AI in our call centers to summarize calls for people after they get off,
right,
which allows our call center team to answer calls faster. So I would say, and then of course there's how do you use it with the developers. There are all these different ways, including marketing. Marketing is actually one of the areas I'm the most excited about, is how do you use Gen AI in your creative to test a lot more things. But to the question of, when and how is it going to completely change the way people travel, it's going to take time.
Right.
And we in May announced Romy, which is in EG Labs, and we're starting to take pieces of it. It's the virtual agent that follows you everywhere. Pieces of it like AI search that we're inserting into the lodging search results. And we're looking at how are people using it. When people are asking for points of interest, are we able to give the good response? I think it's going to be an iterative thing,
right,
but we all absolutely need to be asking ourselves the question of, are our teams looking at it? Are they innovating? What are they learning?
Do you think trip planners like Romy are going to be a big thing, or?
I don't think in the short term it's going to make massive changes. It will be iterative. Actually, one of the cool things our team was telling me last week, I was in a product review on this topic, and they've actually called travel agents, and they've said, we want to try to understand what is it that travel agents are doing that makes the value that they bring so special. And then are there things that we can do to replicate that?
Right.
Now, we all know that I think it's almost 50% of travel still happens through travel agents. And we partner with a lot of travel agencies, 60,000 use our travel agency program. And I think there's always going to be people who will want to go there. And until the AI search can be good enough to sort of really respond to what people need, it's not going to make a massive shift in the way people are shopping, I think.
Right. So B2B was your, is
you
where you...
can't say favorite child.
No, I'm not going to say favorite child, but B2B was your thing, and it's one of the really bright spots of Expedia these days in terms of growth. So we have an audience question about it. Booking.com and other disruptive hotel distribution platforms are growing extremely quickly in the B2B distribution space. How big a threat is that for your EPS?
So it's true. I think that when we started reporting our business between B2C and B2B, and we broke out B2B, people could see how big it was, how fast it was growing. It was clear that was going to make it obvious there's a big opportunity there.
Right.
And it's true, there are a lot of competitors coming in. I have a great respect for the competitors, and I think it keeps you on your toes. So our team is just focused on how do we continue to listen to partners, understand what they need, continue to have great supply, technology, financial terms and the like, and what others do will be what they do, and we'll focus on continuing to grow our business.
So you've said that your B2B business, and you power people like Chase and Marriott Vacations and Delta Airlines, actually 60,000 partners. And you said that doesn't cannibalize your B2C business because it's different use cases. But are you concerned that you're building up, banks, which are, Chase has a goal of $15 billion in sales next year. Are you concerned at all that you're building up these competitors that will one day be a problem?
I would say you can either swim with the tide or against the tide. And as we saw in the presentation right before this, there are a lot of banks that are getting into the travel sector. And if people have credit card loyalty points, they want to spend it on travel. So the question is, do we want to be part of that? Do we want to power them? Do we want to help them? And there's a real business opportunity there. By the way, these are partnerships we've had for quite a long time. And to the extent that travelers go to many different places to shop, we want to be able to participate. Of course, we'd love our consumer brands to drive as much direct, as much repeat as possible. There's a lot of innovation that we put into our consumer brands in order to drive that repeat. But again, the truth is people shop in a lot of different places.
Right. And no one's changing that anytime soon.
No one's changing that anytime soon.
You recently rolled out a program where you are, a lot of travel brands use influencers. You recently rolled out a program where you are paying commissions to influencers for bookings that they generate on your platforms. How has that been working out? I think that was a few months ago you rolled it.
Well, we announced the beta a few months ago, but it was just this week that it came live. And Lori Metros, who's also in the front row, was at the heart of that initiative.
How do they get those seats?
I think they were here early.
Okay.
But we saw a trend which was 80% of people look at social before deciding where they're going to travel or what they're going to choose. And so it was very important for us to be in those social channels, not only with sort of all of the marketing we do, but also with influencers. People look at creators and they follow them. And at the same time as we started to talk to creators, we realized one of the challenges they had was, they might have a bunch of content around travel, but it would be disappearing. And so what we ended up doing was creating these travel shops with them that then live within our Expedia app. People can go back and look at, okay, here are the recommendations from these people who I trust and I follow.
Right.
And it's true, there's a commission model if people book, but it's really more about creating these shops for these influencers. It's great for them, it's great for travelers, and it's early days, but we have definitely high hopes for it.
It's another win-win, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dennis.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I know it was one of my favorites from the Global Forum. Thank you for listening to the Skift Travel Podcast. As always, you can reach us at podcast@skift.com. We'll see you next time on the Skift Travel Podcast with Sarah and Seth.
Thank you for listening to the Skift Travel Podcast. Wherever you're listening, please make sure to subscribe. If you like what you're hearing, rate us 5 stars or leave us a positive review. It really helps get the word out about us, our podcast, and make sure that we can still continue to bring it to you free of charge every week.
If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell as well. That way you'll know every time we have a new episode.